may be, in my opinion, the best gaming series that I've never played. It kind of blew me away how many people, like how such a strong community there is for this series, and it kind of makes me ashamed, like, why have I never played one of this?
What makes it so great is not only the storyline. The storyline is a game of betrayal, hatred, fate, and the way that they intertwine all those things and tell the story is very unique in its own.
What sort of game is this?
Yeah.
What is this game that you speak of?
Yeah, so this is... What is up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome to Digital Quest, the gaming podcast where we dive into the world of gaming.
We talk about the latest gaming news. We talk about the latest releases and gaming retros, retro gaming. So this episode is going to be special. We're talking about a new game and a retro game.
Yeah. This game, it's coming out next week, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited about this game, and some people have probably never heard of this game. So, yeah, you want to dive into it?
Yeah, sure. So, well, this game is near and dear to a whole community of people. I myself have, I'll be very honest with you, I didn't hear it until about recently, and we may have actually talked about it earlier in this podcast, in earlier episodes. So, Mike introduced me to it. I did a whole research of the series, and I'm still learning. In this episode, I'm going to be learning from him. He's the master of this series. I don't know if we want to.
Well, I wouldn't say the true master, because this game is pretty convoluted in the story.
So, without getting into the story, without getting into it, like what is this game? You know, what am I in for? You know?
Yeah. So let's not keep it a mystery anymore. Okay, so let's do it. Let's start it off like this. Are you a fan of games that talk about betrayal, hatred, fate, and least but not least, vampires?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Like not the sparkly kind, but like actually legit, like gothic vampire.
Yes, I am. I'm definitely interested. What sort of game is this? Yeah. What is this game that you speak of?
Yeah. So this is the Legacy of Kain.
Nice.
Yes. Oh my God, dude. I am super hyped for this freaking game, dude. It's like one of my favorite games in the series. In gaming.
Tell me a bit. Tell me a bit more. Like, so, what do you like about it? What do you like about it?
So, for those that know me, like, I'm a very big fan of gothic, what's that word? Mythology, and my like vampires, werewolves, skeletons, and dark architecture like that, gargoyles.
Yeah.
And since modern times has kind of like not really been honoring that kind of stuff. I mean, there are movies coming out like Nosferatu that are kind of like trying to keep it alive.
It looks so good.
Yeah, we won't go into that one, but
we'll save that for another episode.
But remember back in the day, vampires used to be pretty cool. They used to be really
kind of scary.
They had this like nice little attitude to them. Where
not everyone was obsessed with sleeping with a vampire.
Yeah, they weren't I think we already said that, right? They're not sparkly. But instead, like, they were truly like out to get people, kind of like Interview with the Vampire and Queen of the Damned, stuff like that, making vampires cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this game is very special to me because it released on the PS1 originally. And what makes it so great is not only the storyline. The storyline is just super great. It's one of those very what's that word that they call people? A national treasure. It's a gamer's national treasure.
Yeah.
And
something to be treasured, something to be revered by future gamers.
And there's like certain games that can really hold that standard where like it's just so good and in terms of storyline. And gaming mechanics are kind of a hit or miss in certain areas for people, and because they've changed quite a bit throughout the games. But yeah, I mean, this game, it like I stated before, it's a game of betrayal, hatred, fate, and the way that they intertwine all those things and tell the story is very unique in its own.
Absolutely, yeah. No, so it kind of blew me away how many people, like how such a strong community there is for this series, Legacy of Kain, and it kind of makes me ashamed, like, why have I never played one of this? So frankly, I think like the Legacy of Kain series may be, in my opinion, the best gaming series that I've never played thus far. This game's got it all, like you said. It's kind of borderline confusing, but it's got so much intricacy. It's got nuance. It's got character. It's got sacrifice. It's got loss. It's got freaking time travel, time loops, time paradoxes, vampires,
a lot of stuff, right?
Werewolves. Yes, give it to me. So it's literally one of the best gaming series that I still need to play, and I'm super excited to finally get to play it when it comes out, God willing, next week.
Yeah, and it's kind of, and you hit it on the head where like not a lot of people, well, we've hit it on the head where not a lot of people have really heard about this story, and that's kind of sad because I know it came out in an era where, a lot of the newer generation did not have the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these older gems that were on release on older systems, like they're kind of getting lost in this like library of games now. And what I really appreciate from Crystal Dynamics, who is the publisher or the game developer, I forgot. I always get mixed up between the two. But I think Aspyr is the one that's releasing it, which is, I believe that people were saying it's a limited run games company or a subset.
Yeah.
But anyways, they are releasing it next week as a remaster, and they announced this. When did they do it? It was State of Play earlier in the year.
Some time ago, earlier this year.
Yeah, and that was like, man, dude, when I saw that trailer, because like for the longest time, people were asking like, when are you gonna do a Kain game? When are you gonna do a Legacy of Kain game, a Soul Reaver, and remaster those games? They were so good, and then boom, they hit you with that trailer, and I was like, oh my god,
finally!
People were excited about the Ghost of Yote, and I'm like, nah, bro, it's about Soul Reaver.
So it really seems like when it comes to Legacy of Kain, if you know about Legacy of Kain, which I'm just barely getting into now, you love Legacy of Kain, and if you don't like it, well, it's because you've never heard of it, you haven't played it yet, right? So the people who are into Legacy of Kain, they're so excited for this potential remaster and about the possibility of a new release. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a refresher for they're keeping the story, they're keeping the game alive. Like,
so how many entries are there? Like in this series?
I got them right here. They're
gotcha. This guy, he's got it all.
There's only a total of five games. And they were across the PS1 and PS2 and Xbox. OG Xbox? Yeah, OG Xbox.
So this really is one of those series that's kind of like locked behind the technology until recently, right? Because I believe
too, that's what it was on GameCube. Sorry.
GameCube. Yeah, so it's pretty much stuck between whatever generation the PS1 was on all the way up to the GameCube era. So that's kind of GameCube, Xbox, and PS2 era, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we didn't really see anything in the PS3 era, the 4 or the 5. So this is decades like with the release of Soul Reaver 1 and 2, it's like we're literally bringing back decades of old classic games into the future, so to speak, right? So I guess it's great. This is one of those great things about remasters. I don't know. I feel like with the age of the PS4 and the PS5, it's just nothing but like rehashing remasters. But in this case, it's like this is something that's locked behind the technology. A whole community, a whole generation of gamers has been denied this great series, and now finally we have access. People like me who have never played it, we now have access. So
for sure,
I'm excited. Truth be told,
yeah, dude, I'm really, and the thing is, like the remaster is not even going to start from the first game. So but not to say you can't play it. You can get it on the PS Store.
Right. I believe there's a port available on PlayStation, on the PlayStation Network. That's for Blood Omen, right?
For the PS Plus, I think it's the one that comes with all the PS1 games you could play. I don't know if the basic tier allows you to do that.
Right.
I think it's only on the streaming. Forgot how they
but if people
out.
want to find a way to play the game and they feel kind of guilty about emulating it, there is a legal way to do it, and that's through the PlayStation Network. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you got Blood Omen on the PlayStation Network, you got Soul Reaver 1 and 2 coming out, and then the other ones are kind of TBD, right? But
as of right now, yeah. But no, they have Blood Omen. They the only game they do not have is
actually
the fifth one.
That's right. Yeah, Blood Omen 2 is on there.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
So quick note, right? We're talking about like you emulating games on the PS Network. For those of you that don't know, small little news nugget. If any of you have a PlayStation Portal, which before it was kind of like this weird system that would only connect to your console inside your house, right? It's like a little tablet, basically a controller split in half with a big old tablet in the middle.
Right.
Well, they actually made an update to where you can now play and stream games to it without even needing a console. You could be anywhere, stream it as long as you have internet, and dude, makes it so good, and that's what I've been playing Blood Omen on, and which is the first game in the series. And dude, it's great.
That's pretty awesome.
It's so they finally. I think they were cooking on it for a while, and they were like, "We want to get this right," and they freaking just dominated.
Yeah,
like, now
that's the thing. I was very hesitant about picking it up. It just seems like, okay, well, I could just. It's like basically making your PS5 portable, but now it's like, no, this is its own thing. You can stream stuff directly from the cloud and play directly on there, including Blood Omen and Blood Omen 2 and all these other games that are on the PlayStation Network.
You know, and fun little nugget too, I've heard that they are thinking about making another PSP, which...
Oh my god!
Won't dive into it that much because I don't know that much into it. But I've heard and multiple people say like, "Hey, I think they're going to announce a PSP." They're alluding into that.
Really quickly into that, you know, like there's a lot of like jailbroken PSPs that are like they're back on the market. Like refurbished PSPs and jailbroken PSPs are back on the market and they're selling like hotcakes.
Oh, dude, yeah, because they're great systems. And I way back when that's what I was trying to do with my PSP is trying to get all these PS1 games on there.
Right? Yeah,
and dude.
No.
Yeah. So I can only imagine.
Classic. But that's for another day.
Yeah, that's for another day.
So I guess let's just kind of lead into Legacy of Kain a bit more. So I think it's fair to say that I've kind of I have not played Legacy of Kain yet, but I'm absolutely going to because this is something that calls out to me. Who is Legacy of Kain for? Who would you recommend this to?
So I would recommend it to a gamer that really appreciates a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a fan of like how I stated, I'm a very huge fan of the old gothic vampiric,
classic mythological
creatures, stuff like that. And also looking for a non-microtransactional type game. I would say like nowadays everything's microtransactions.
Yeah, you got the whole game, you got everything in one system, the whole experience,
and you want to
pay for more.
Yeah. So mechanics wise, if you want to jump into something that's very, I wouldn't say it's crazy simple, but like it's a great game that gets you to like, it has puzzles in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one thing to hit on is like it has puzzles. You get to kill enemies in unique ways and everything about it.
Yeah, it's not too difficult, but it makes you think.
Yeah, and it's almost like a Metroidvania. It has some Metroidvania implications in it, where you have to gain power-ups to go and access different areas and get secrets, and so there's a lot to unpack in it. And while you're doing all that, you're learning about the story, and as the story unfolds, like it really kind of opens up a lot of questions because like the community right now, I don't think. I could be wrong, but I don't really think there's a person that really 100% knows what's going on. There is like 50% of people are kind of like, man, what the heck is going on? There's so much back and forth with everything. And then you got people that are really into it, like the historical people that are like really putting this walkthrough together and like identifying everything and the symbolism behind everything. Yeah. And
it's kind of like our zombie episodes from last week where it's like, we can try our best to tell you like the broad strokes of what's going on, but anyone who really knows what's going on, it's like, props to you, bro. But at least you could say with a straight face that the gameplay and at least the story, as you immediately understand it, is pretty satisfying.
Dude, definitely. And from a high level too, like it's not a. It's a unique story, but they play on something that's already been. They play on some strings where they have been implicated into like other areas of gaming, right?
Right.
So this story is about, you got these, let's just say, entities that are in the world. There is something that controls the balance of how everything works. So you have like the elements. Let's just say, for example, this is not exactly what's going on, but like elements, you got earth, wind, fire, wind and all that kind of stuff, right? That play into a role like how Avatar plays into it,
right,
and how they mesh into the world and they bring balance to everything. Well, the way they do it in this one, it's more of like there's 9 different things that are holding everything together, and if one of those things get broken in the ring of the 9, then that kind of disrupts everything.
Okay, so is this kind of like the background for the whole series, like these 9, the ring of 9?
This particular thing, this symbology of what this thing represents is basically the premise of, or the main premise of the whole entire series.
It's the whole reason. Yeah, it's the whole,
But you got that. And we'll talk more into it. Like right now, it may seem confusing right now, but when we dive into it, you'll make a lot of sense. But underneath that umbrella, you have the whole this vengeance aspect of the common revenge story. Someone gets murdered, and then you got to go and get revenge on something, and then also you have this like how you hit on the head. It was like this timeline thing. So now you got like almost a borderline, I would say, a multiverse going on too. And
before multiverses got popular, it's kind of a multiverse going on, right?
Yeah. It's more they called it. Remember when we used to call it timelines?
Timelines,
yeah, not multiverse now. That's kind of more been the modernized.
Yeah. That's the thing I was going to say about this. Like, it kind of does timelines tastefully. Like, if there's a new timeline or if there's some time changingness or manipulation, there's consequences.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's refreshing. And this is a retro. It's refreshing that I'm getting this from a retro.
Exactly, dude. Well, I mean, this is the same era that came out with Metal Gear Solid. I mean, come on. Like, dude, Metal Gear Solid, one of the best stories ever in gaming. I mean, come on, dude. Like, that's... Whew. Yeah, to compete with that one's crazy, dude. I miss all the PS1 games. Man, oh, God, they were so good.
Speaking of which, a brief tangent. The PS4 30th anniversary celebration.
Oh, you mean
the startup?
Oh, dude, that was... Oh, my God.
Because you're talking about celebrating the PS1.
Yeah.
What better way is it than, like, you get a notification, there's an update. Hey, you need this update. I'm like, okay, I guess. And then system shuts off. It comes back on. Then the classic. The PS1 startup.
PS1 startup. I was like, oh, this
the
is
nostalgia,
so good.
the thrills, the chills. My God.
And then they give you the option to kind of go through, make your system sound like every one of those systems. So you can make it sound like the PS1 and sort of look like it with the wallpaper. And then you can make it sound like the PS2, 3, 4, and 5. Dude, it's so awesome, man. Like, as much as I love the PS1, that was one of my favorite systems of all time, but the PS2 sounds were just so great. Oh, so nostalgic, dude. The whole foom, foom. I'm like, oh, dude, I remember this.
The PS3 era is now retro. It's kind of vintage now. The whole going between options, the clicks.
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
just, it's so satisfying. Just oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, myself, I wasn't a crazy fan for the maybe it was the PS4. No, it was PS3, because at the time it was between the PS3 and, was it 360?
Yes,
or was 360 competing with PS2?
360 and PS3 were
I can't remember. It's been yeah, you're right. It's the 360 and the PS3.
360 was towards the end of the PS2 life cycle, and then that's when PS3 came. Yeah,
PS2 was against Xbox One.
The first Xbox, and then kind of the 360 era. And then that's when PS3,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, so very nostalgic on those sounds, dude. It's so great. I hope they keep it for the long haul. They don't take it out at any point in time, but
we should hope. I mean, if it's a good idea, more than likely it's not going to stick around. But
yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. I just won't update my system anymore.
Yeah, right. Or just disconnect it from the Wi-Fi. Like, that's it.
And then it's going to be worth a lot on eBay, right?
Dude, yeah. Just take a note from the PT people, the people who kept PT on their systems. Now it's going for like several $1,000s.
That's
just
crazy.
For having that one system. Sorry, had a little hiccup there.
Wicked, dude.
Yeah, Legacy of Kain.
Yeah. So back to Legacy of Kain. So yeah, you want to go ahead and start off into the. Just to let y'all know, we will be talking briefly before we will dive into the story pretty deep as far as what I know. I mean, I know, Mike, you're not so you haven't gotten into the series, so I'm gonna kind of guide you like on what's going on in this
Please,
thing.
Yeah.
And so the way we're going to structure this out and do it to the best that we can is we will talk briefly on what the game it represents, and then once we finish that particular discussion, we will dive into the actual story, which is going to contain a lot of spoilers. So when we get to that point, we'll definitely say like, hey, warning, spoilers, basically. And if you want to kind of play the game first and not have anything spoiled for you, and come back to the episode later and then kind of hear our thoughts on it, then you can do that. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
And then leave us some comments, and that way you could be like, hey, this wasn't right, or hey, this was what I thought it meant. And that would be awesome. I mean, because there's a lot of ways to interpret this game. And it's not like a one-way kind of depiction,
Yeah.
It's up for,
up for interpretation.
Exactly.
All right. So yeah, if you don't want to get spoiled at this point, you click off and then save it, bookmark it, favorite it, subscribe while you're at it, and when you're ready, come back and check us out.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So I guess let's talk about. So you were asking about Blood Omen or your Legacy of Kain?
So let's bust these out, okay? So the first game that we have is Blood Omen.
Blood Omen.
So this is the first game that you'll find on the store, right?
Yeah,
and
currently available for download. Yeah.
right. And so this game is where everything starts off. This game is a pretty typical story of being trying to get vengeance for being basically what happens to you, and so it's a story of vengeance. And then while you're at it, you kind of start learning about the backstory of these of what's happening in the world and how these particular they call them pillars. The pillars are the foundation of what holds the world together, and they all each represent a particular what's that word?
Element or
kind of
an element of the essential element of the universe of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what they represent, right? Oh, you know what? Let's get into the story first.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a as you go through the story and you start finding out how these pillars play a role in everything, and then also there's the world is split in half between two races. You got the humans and you got the vampires, and so it's a story about those two coinciding with each other. And obviously, if you've already guessed, there is war going on between the two, and there is a lot of betrayal on the back end that is kind of unexplainable, at least at first.
Right.
And as you go along the game, you kind of figure out what's going on, and then you find out things are not maybe what they seem as you're being led along. So yeah, that's kind of like
that's kind of the whole story of Legacy of Kain. Like, things are not how they seem, or like if something doesn't make sense, or if there's a loose thread, it's going to get explained.
Exactly.
Eventually, just hold on.
And that's what I like about it. Like, it makes you feel a certain way at one point, like, oh man, I hate this person.
Yeah.
And then as you go along, you're like, oh, maybe this guy's not so bad after all.
It kind of reminded me of Lost, where it's kind of like, I'm watching all these playthroughs, I'm watching all these like interpretation videos and what have you. And it's like, here's a loose thread, or here's something that looks unexplained or looks confusing, or something you may disagree with. It's like, hold on, let bro cook. And, Crystal Dynamics or whichever company was developing that game, that's like, hold up, we're cooking. And then sure enough, they cook and there's an explanation. And now it's like, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense. That's what
I love that kind of stuff
like
where they kind of just let you wonder about it, and then all of a sudden they hit you.
The guy who you believed was one thing is actually another thing. The person you hated is now someone you kind of sympathize with, and vice versa. So that's kind of what blew me away. Anyway, I'm kind of spoiling. Go ahead. So what takes us into Blood Omen? Legacy of Kain. Tell us about Kain. This is a game about. I believe the first one's about Kain, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the legacy. It's got to start with Kain. It's his legacy. Yeah.
So yeah, you play a guy named Kain, and so the way that the story starts off. Anyways, spoilers. We're getting into the story now. You start the game straight up in a bar, or in a tavern, I should say.
Right.
And
Yield Tavern. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens is, like, you're kind of shoved out by the barkeep.
Right.
And so he doesn't want to serve you. And then as soon as you get out, you get ambushed by bandits.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bandits murder you. And that's kind of where now the story begins, where you end up in basically hell. And there is this person who is representing death. His name is Mortanius. And
I think he's a necromancer, right?
Yeah, he's a necromancer.
Yeah.
And the way that they just depict him as a death figure. And so he wakes up, and also I'm going to be reading my notes here because there's a lot to unpack.
Not a problem.
He wakes up in hell, or in the underworld, and the necromancer tells him, like, hey, we're going to bring you back because you serve a greater purpose. And he gets brought back as a vampire. And now he's woken up, and he has to go leave. He wakes up in a crypt. And so when he gets out, he notices that there's these pillars. There's like 9 circular pillars that are just shooting straight up into the sky.
Yeah, it's infinite, right? They're infinite like pillars, right?
Yeah, they're literally infinite. They're infinite. Like, they have no end.
Yeah.
So they go up and they go down, and through the earth. And one thing I didn't mention is that the world that we are in, the name of it is called Nosgoth.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the whole entire game, this is where everything's revolved around.
Yeah.
The world of Nosgoth. So as you go in through the forest and you kind of find your way to the pillars, this is now where you meet a ghost by the name of Ariel,
Right.
who explains that there is some corruption going on, and so there's
some corruption. Yeah.
so so you learn about the pillars, right? So there's 9 pillars, which the first one is conflict, which is represented by a protector named Malik. Each pillar is represented by a protector, and then the next pillar is dimension, controlled by Azimuth. Energy is the next one by Dejul. There's death, which is Mortanius, the person that you met in the underworld. States is controlled by Anarkroth, and by time you got a person named Mobius.
Nice.
Very particular. He's a big critical piece of the story.
Get familiar with him.
Get really familiar with him. And so then you got nature, who's Bane, mind, Nutraptor, and then you got balance, who is Ariel, the one you're talking to. So and one thing I did forget to mention is that in the first opening sequence, you kind of witness this vampire kind of going around killing people, and then there's certain people dying, right? And so when you get to the pillars, they explain like, hey, the people that were getting killed are the protectors of these pillars. So I believe there are 6 of the pillars that were 6 of the protectors that were murdered. So that means 6 of the pillars were corrupted. So when a person dies, they get corrupted. And in order for you to bring balance back to those pillars, you got to bring the essence of what that person represented back into the pillar, so that, because the way it works is when someone dies, a new one has to take its place.
Right.
So whenever they get brought back to, it's almost like a reincarnation, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it works. And when you find out all that happened, there is 3 people left, and where Ariel's talking to you, she mentions that she wants you to be the balance. You were basically born to represent the balance pillar.
Right.
And then, so she tells you this whole story where she wants you to go and kind of kill kill the person that was responsible for killing the other protectors. And that's kind of where the main story leads you.
Yeah.
And as you go on your quest, your first objective is to basically go find what's his name, but it's Nutraptor. So Nutraptor is the mind guy, and because Nutraptor was in love with Ariel, so when Ariel got murdered, since Nutraptor is still alive, he went to a frenzy where he started bringing chaos in the world. And so now everything's kind of been jacked up, and there's monsters everywhere.
So is Nutraptor the responsible for killing Kain, or was
no? They haven't got to that part.
Okay,
yet.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah,
so not wait patiently.
Not yet. I mean, I have to look at my notes. I
got you.
I don't think so.
Sorry.
But yeah, so as you go, you have to go and let's see, find this particular Nutraptor, because you want to make sure, because at first it's like he's the one responsible. So then you find his keep, and then when you get there, you find out that he wasn't really behind it, and so then you get led. It's kind of like you get fed little breadcrumbs to go and, oh no, the princess is not here, you gotta go into another castle, or kind of thing.
Right, kind of,
and
playing that classic mechanic.
Yeah. So then you go and talk to this vampire named Vorador, who's a big piece of the story, where he is this powerful vampire, and so he tells you, he welcomes you because you're a vampire as well,
right,
and he's willing to help you out. But what came down to it was, I think there's a lot of notes here. I'm gonna have to filter all that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, or if you want to give us some brass.
Do you have any questions on everything so far? I feel like
I mean, so it sounds like there's a revenge story. It sounds like there's a task. I do know there's a lot of like, one of my favorite things about going through the videos is that it's kind of like one of those things where it's like you start off as like a little peon. You start as like a guy who's new to this world, new to the story, doesn't really know what's happening, kind of finding his place in it, and doesn't really have a lot of powers. But as he progresses through the world and beats these dungeons and bosses, he can become stronger. Is that fair to say? Like
Basically, yeah.
Basically,
Yeah,
so-
you gain like bat form and mist form, kind of like Castlevania, where you get like those as Alucard, you get those forms.
right, yeah.
So it's kind of like what he gets is you get those type of
yeah,
things.
but it's something you have to work for, right? I think you have to like beat some dungeons and stuff, or you have to like go through. Like,
yeah, it's almost like a dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
you can veer off the beaten path and kind of go and find secrets and stuff.
That's what I kind of like. Like, there's definitely a story. There's linearity to it, but there's also a lot of, kind of choose your own adventure. I want to go off the beaten path. I want to go into this dungeon. And then there's also that Metroidvania aspect where you can go back and kind of go into areas that you think you cleared, but once you get these new abilities, it's like, oh no, I can now reach this other area, where there's like a secret or something I can use to level up.
So one thing that I left out is the reason why Kain is on this quest is also because he wants to cure his vampirism.
So explain that to me. So it kind of sounds like Spawn, where it's like, oh, I go to hell. He takes a deal with like the pseudo devil. He becomes something he dreads, and then he works hard to undo the deal. Like, so I mean, he said he would go back to life and be a vampire, and now he's like, I don't want to be a vampire. Kind of like,
well, no, he made a deal. It was basically a deal, but he didn't know he was going to turn into a vampire. I think that's the way I understood it.
It kind of sounds like Spawn.
Yeah.
Now that I just realized that.
And then when he realizes that he is a vampire, he witnesses kind of like, oh man, this is a different change that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
And so now he's no longer human. And then, that's where he is set out to find a cure for his vampirism. And that's where Ariel tells him that he must destroy the pillars to experience peace.
Destroy or restore?
Destroy. I'm
Destroy,
sorry.
okay.
I kind of said restore earlier, but it was actually destroy, like to because the pillars are the ones that are controlling everything,
Mhm.
and they're making you think that because there's just like this the governing of these pillars that kind of get political.
Right.
It's almost like that. It's like a political game, and so to destroy the political game, that's where you're trying to destroy the pillars. And so that's why
by destroying the avatars, by destroying the protectors of the pillars.
Yeah, so you have to destroy, and then once you destroy all the pillars, then you can bring peace to everything. That's the story that you're fed.
And each and every single one of these protectors are vampires, basically, right? These master vampires.
I don't think they're all vampires. Because I think there was one of them that was a vampire. Okay. But the rest of them, I think, were humans.
But they're all bosses at the very least, right? They're all like most of them, at least, are bosses that you need to beat, right?
Basically, yeah.
So, do you like? I'm guessing you beat most, if not all, these bosses and stuff. I mean, without going to spoilers for sequels.
Yeah. But, so I got my brain back on track for this thing. I kind of lost my mind in the notes, but
you're good.
So yeah, you as I stated, you go find Noob Raptor, you kill Noob Raptor, and what happens is like there's this other individual called Malik, and you are now after him. And so what happens is like you end up being at a stalemate at some point, and then you have to go and chase him off and stuff. And then that's where you have to go find Vorador, which was Malik's adversary, like his rival, basically. And so Vorador, who is a vampire, tells him to embrace the vampire nature and do not get involved in mankind affairs. So he's trying to warn him, like, hey, don't get involved in this stuff because there's something crazy going on,
Yeah, don't involve yourself in this.
And then as Kain doesn't listen, he kind of persists to go kill the other people who are Bane that are still alive, like Bane, Dejul, Azimuth. And this is where when you kill Azimuth, you find the titular, is that the right term? The titular item of the series, which is the Soul Reaver.
Yeah.
And so the Soul Reaver is basically this really crooked or crooked looking sword with a hook, with a skull on it, and it actually plays a pretty big role in the whole entire series.
I mean, literally two of the games in the series is named after it, right?
Yeah. Just to easily put it that way. But the powers that it holds are to be explained in future games, and how it plays its big role.
But it's pretty freaking important, fair to say.
Yep,
right? It's pretty big. Yeah,
it's crazy because like in the beginning they don't really make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
So like when you get it, you're like, oh, this is a cool sword, and then you find later, oh, like this is actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah, this
like,
is actually
why didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing throughout the game that I really like is like the character. Well, for one, I didn't note that the voice actors in the series are freaking phenomenal.
It's for the time, and I mean, even no, but just the whole series in general, the voice acting is pretty superb. It's amazing.
Yeah. They chose the right people, and then there's some very there's one familiar voice that's been it's gone around the block with a bunch of games and movies and TV shows. But yeah, so as you're playing the game, when you find certain things, he kind of narrates the story out loud. So like you're kind of like hearing his thoughts. So like if you find an item, he's like, oh, this item, blah, 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 blah. And it kind of goes on. And
the series is kind of known for its monologuing, right?
Yeah, the monologuing. There you go.
Yeah. I believe, quote me if I'm wrong, just kind of fast forwarding ahead to like Blood Omen 2. Like one of the biggest criticisms of that game is that Kain does a monologue to himself. It's like, people are, whoever made that game, they're like, oh, people actually like that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think if I'm not mistaken, it was either Soul Reaver 2 or it was that game that they kind of had a rush on where they didn't get to like properly polish the game as well as they wanted to.
Right.
But yeah, that would probably be why.
Yeah. So monologuing.
Continuing on from the story, right? Like you find the Soul Reaver, and then in the meanwhile, Vorador kills Malik in the background, and so all this stuff going on, right? It's like Game of Thronesy. And so,
there's a lot of politics going on, as it were. Yeah.
And then you get this time controlling device from Azimuth, who which allows you to go back in time. And so
this is where it hooked me as a fan of time travel.
So now we're introducing time travel, and Ariel, the person from the beginning, instructs you to focus your attention on this person called the Nemesis, and basically it's a person with an army, and where in order for you to prevent things that happened in the current state, you had to go back to the past to kind of go and get rid of these people. Right?
Isn't Nemesis kind of like a big bad? He's kind of like this thing that's happening in the background in the present day, right? Before you go back in time, and so you go back in time. It's like, hey, you have to beat this guy called the Nemesis. It's like, oh, okay, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. That's basically what they're doing. They're telling you, in order to fix this, you got to go back and do this.
Yeah, you got to fix it by preventing it, or you got to nip it in the bud earlier.
Yeah. So you go back in time, right, and then you find you fight the Nemesis, whose name is William the Just, and that's a big deal down the road as it pops up quite a bit. So what happens is someone gave him intel that a vampire assassin was going to come and kill him. So that already now starts telling you like, oh my God, now there's some like shady shit in the background. Like who the hell is releasing information and going time traveling between with you. And it starts bringing that element into it. And so what happens is when you're fighting him, he actually has the Soul Reaver.
So you going back in time with this time control device and the Soul Reaver, and then the person you're fighting also has the same sword. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a paradox.
So now there's a paradox where you have a Soul Reaver and then he has a Soul Reaver.
Right.
Two items that shouldn't exist in the same world.
Yeah.
And so this now creates this little spark in the timeline where as you go back to the present time, everything leading up to the present time is dead. So because you took care of that event, so now it changed the course of history.
Right.
And so after you change the timeline, this kind of now
this is the new timeline.
Right. It sparked a new vampire purge where now people wanted to kind of get rid of them because they were finding that there were actual they were a threat before between the humans. But now they're even more of a threat. Right.
Absolutely.
And so
that's kind of cool. Nowadays, you notice with like timelines and multiverses, it's like, oh, there's no paradoxes. It creates a separate universe. Here, it's like, no, that other universe is dead. Now it's like you got to live with the consequences of these new actions. The timeline is broken, and now it has to heal itself. It does that by destroying the other timeline. And now, congrats, you've created this new timeline, and you're stuck in it, so to speak.
Yeah. And so during this time, like you had this it's somewhere in the story in between where you're going and killing the people. You had to seek out this person called the Oracle, and that person ended up turning out to be Mobius. As we stated in the beginning, Mobius was a pretty big figure in the series, and he was the mastermind behind Kain's actions, kind of like orchestrating everything.
Yeah, everything in the background.
Yeah, and so you end up killing him, and then you kind of overhear an argument between the person called Mortanius and Anarkroth, which is an alchemist and also one of the protectors. and they actually revealed like the whole the plot in the beginning that you were trying to figure out, like who murdered these people, ended up being Mortanius. So now he's you find out all that stuff, and you're kind of like, oh snap, like what the heck, what happened here? And what happened was he was controlled. It wasn't necessarily he did it on his will. He was actually controlled by this dark entity. And so he was, I guess, possessed. Is that the right?
I guess that's fair.
I mean, that would be fair.
Right. If he's controlled, he's possessed. Yeah.
Yeah. So in order to, it's obviously there's a lot of imbalance now in everything because there's shit going on everywhere.
This guy who goes on the hero's journey to create balance is actually kind of fucking things up. Royally.
Right. Yeah. So now see how things kind of get like, it's starting to get like, oh wow, this is one thing, and now it's turning out to be another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in order for you to correct everything, you have to go and you have to destroy the circle. So what happens after that is, whenever Mortanius is possessed, and you end up killing him anyways. You kill Mortanius because he was possessed by the dark entity, and the last thing that you're left with is you find out that you're the last member of the circle, which is because you find out that Ariel, the person you've been talking to from the very beginning, you are her successor.
Shit.
So,
I mean, she did kind of say, "Hey, I need you for balance." Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Guess what? Guess what that means? Yeah.
Yeah. And the only cure, obviously, to his vampirism is like he has to kill himself.
You have to kill to get rid of the protector.
Right.
That's you.
Yeah. Yep. So the cool thing about this game is that there's two endings. You have a choice, right?
I love that, yeah.
And one of them is canon, obviously. And
there's sequels. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the option to either kill yourself and destroy all the vampires, which restores peace to the land, and
people live happily ever after. Basically,
everybody lives happily ever after.
But you don't get to see it.
Yep. Well, yeah, you don't get to see it. And then, or you can be selfish and damn the world, and then the pillars collapse, which would result in basically a destruction and like a wasteland.
And I think he also becomes like king of the vampires, right? Kain.
Yeah, he just ends up going down that route because he.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just like an ancillary thing, but no. Otherwise, it's like be selfish. It's kind of an impossible decision, right? Like I noticed that. So it's canon that he continues to live, and I've seen people classify it as the bad ending, but it's also like, well, wouldn't you? I mean, wouldn't you want to try to stay alive?
Well, see, yeah. So if you haven't guessed, the canon ending would be the one where he ends up embracing his vampire nature and damning the world.
Right.
So it sounds bad, right? It sounds really bad when you pick that. But there's a lot more truth to that as it comes, which kind of now sets the stage for Soul Reaver 1, which. Let's bust it out real quick. So, do you have any questions on this? Because I know that was a lot, and I probably jumped around.
Blood Omen 1 is the one that I'll be very honest with you. It kind of intrigues me the most. I like that it's a retro. I like it's got vampires. It's got time travel. It's got the time loops. It's got the paradox. I like it's got these little pillars going into the sky. So actually, I'm actually pretty good, and the way you explained it kind of just confirms my understanding of it. I like it. I'm pretty much good to go for Soul Reaver.
Yeah, but you see how I like it has like that typical like overhanging kind of theme to the story where it's like absolutely. It's controlled by like this balance of certain something.
I noticed. Yeah, no, that seems to be like I noticed like the running theme in the first game, and then I think it kind of bleeds into the other ones. It's like destiny and it's like fate, and it's like okay, are you going to be a slave to it, or are you going to do something, do something different? Are you going to veer from the path of destiny? But to do that, you have to be kind of selfish. You kind of have to, I don't know. That's the way kind of like, am I kind of on the right track?
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good interpretation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm probably way off, but anyway, take us to Soul Reaver 1.
Yeah. So this game, oh man, dude, like this one brings back so many memories. Like I remember when this game first came out, which was, let's see, what was that game?
Let me see this baby.
I think it was like 1999. Was that it? Yeah. So it was in 1999, dude. And I still remember because I used to get those GamePro magazines that had like the advertisements for the games, and the first time I saw like the page, the back page, it was like it showed the main character. His name is Raziel, and I was like, oh man, this character looks sick. Like he has this little like it's a cape basically. It's an overhanging cape, but like he wraps it around his face, and then he looks like very cool and mysterious, and then with the wide eyes and everything, he's a vampire, and then his blue skin, and so then that kind of, man, I just remember first seeing that. And then also has one of the most iconic intros in like the PS1 era.
Yes.
Or it could probably be in gaming in just general.
Can we listen to it?
In my opinion, it would be like in gaming in general.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what is awesome is the theme song. So let me play a little bit for you, because that'll help make it sound better. So you have like these drums in the background, right? Like literally the game starts off with this. And I'll explain a little bit as we go into the story about what's happening at this particular point.
That slaps.
Yeah.
That goes pretty hard.
Oh, you think this slaps? It gets better. I mean, it's like... So you have that like going on, right? Kind of building up. And I don't know if it goes into the part that I like right now. Yeah. It's like so sick. Oh.
Love it.
Yeah, so awesome intro. And then actually, if anybody's a fan of Trivium and the lead singer, who is Matthew Heafy, they are making a comic that's kind of a prequel to Soul Reaver and a sequel to, or it's like the in between of Blood Omen and Soul Reaver.
Really? They're making a new one, or
yeah? Well, no, it's a comic. Like they're
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And yeah, so it's pretty awesome. Like it's on a Kickstarter right now. I'm actually thinking about getting it.
Oh damn,
Yeah,
that's actually pretty cool.
it's freaking cool.
I gotta take a look at it. That's pretty cool.
So just to close out on the song is Matthew Heafy is made a cover of the song, and dude, it sounds sick. It's like all metal and everything.
Badass.
But yeah. So what happens? This game is it's not based around. Well, Kain's in it, but you're not playing Kain as you were in Blood Omen.
That's what threw me off when I saw all the retrospectives and the playthroughs. It's like, hey, Legacy of Kain, you don't play as Kain. It's like, what? Yeah. But his story, Raziel's story, it seems like pretty important, just as important, if not more so than
dude,
Kain's.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, this game is more of a revenge type game, not more for vengeance, but more for just revenge because of what happened to you in the beginning. Because there was already a purpose of, there was already a very negative outcome in the beginning, basically.
Right.
Like with the bandits, it's like you kind of got ambushed and you were like, well, what the hell? They're just bandits. Like,
right.
But in the particular beginning, they kind of explain like who you are, why you're getting, why you're
getting what you're getting.
Why you're getting murdered, basically. And then
it always starts with a murder.
And then you're all pissed off throughout the game and you're like, I want to go fucking kill this guy.
So how's this start here?
So in this game, takes place from Blood Omen, since the events happened on there, as I stated from the bad ending, which was the canon ending. It takes place 1,500 years after, so it's quite a while. A while after.
Good amount of time.
And so the vampires have basically domesticated the human race, and they basically took over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with that theme song, if you still have it in your head, that is what opens up with the game, and there's a monologue from the main character. His name is Raziel, and he's basically he's the top lieutenant, or the top lieutenant of Kain's army. So the game opens up where Kain is now a god figure in the eyes of everybody,
right?
The vampire guy, and so Raziel walks in and he demonstrates that he gained a new evolution. So from his vampire states, because vampires didn't particularly have this trait about them, but he evolved into this particular thing. So he shows off that he has wings.
Right.
To Kain, and so
he's like, "Look, father, look at me."
Yeah. So he's like, "I have something to show you. Look what I can do." And Kain kind of walks up and he's kind of questioning. He's like, "Oh." It almost looks like a bit of jealousy going on. Like he's like, what's going on here? And then oh man, the next part is so brutal. So he goes behind him, starts kind of touching his wings, and then Raziel still monologuing, saying like, I'm the first of his lieutenants, and then Kain, I'm just trying, I want to lead the army basically, and then Kain just goes and touches his wings and it rips him off of his back, like just the bones, rips the
Right.
bones off, and leaves just his torn skin.
Jesus.
And so they take him into this this whirlpool, which is basically they call it the abyss, and the Lake of the Dead. I think that's what they call it.
Yeah, the Lake of the Dead. Yeah.
So what happens is his brothers, because Raziel had, I think, like 6 brothers.
Yeah, he had a number of brothers.
Yeah, he had a number of brothers, and so Kain instructs them to go take him to the Lake of the Dead and then throw him in. And so what happens? The particular phrase that he says is like, "Cast him in," and then it's like they throw Raziel in, and he's burning, right? Because the vampires don't like water. I mean, they get burned when they step on water. So he's burning. Get this, for 500 years. Like,
yeah, he burns literally. He's in the fire for 500 years.
Yep, tormented for 500 years, and then where the beginning ends is like he looks like he gets revived, where now he's like just no skin left on him, just a bunch of like his skin has turned blue.
Yeah, he's literally a shadow of
it's like
his former
muscle.
self.
It's just muscle, and he has no innards, and he's just like this freaking carcass. And,
and then somehow he ends up with a cape.
Yeah, well, the thing that he had over his shoulder in the very beginning was this like lieutenant banner.
Right.
And so that's what it was. It was a banner. And so as he was burning, he lost the bottom of his jaw. So like now he just has like 2 fangs going like that.
That's crazy.
And
that's pretty metal though.
So,
I love it. That's pretty metal.
So when he wakes up, he sees his banner like hanging over him. What he does like just slaps it over him.
Yeah.
And then now he has like this, he looks all badass, like with the freaking mouth cover.
Kind of like a mask poncho kind of thing kind of going on. I love it.
White eyes and everything. And then this, so it's like super awesome.
That's what I was going to say. Is what I love about the Legacy of Kain thing. It's pretty aesthetic. It's gothic, but it's also got a lot of a dark aesthetic. I love it. It just screams like 90s to thousands angst. You know, it's kind of like Spawn. It's like, you know, oh, this is an angry guy. You could tell this guy. He's pretty fucking angry. He's out for vengeance.
Yeah. Oh, he's pissed. Yeah. He's like, what the?
I mean, literally, he was burning for 500 years. I would imagine he would be pretty fucking pissed.
Oh yeah, but also he's like, what's happening now? Why am I alive? And then you hear this voice talking to him. It's like this really deep voice. It's like, Raziel, you know, like, I have a task for you. And then that's where the game starts.
Nice.
And the person that was talking to you is this entity called the Elder God. And it's basically this, I guess he's like a creature, but he's just kind of like there in the start game where he's just like infused with the environment.
Okay.
So yeah, he's basically like this guy that's just like there, right, and then talking to you in the monologue. He kind of controls everything in the world, like talking to you in the background, and he's like just infused into the world. And so what happens after that? And now obviously Raziel's main intent is to go and kill Kain to get revenge.
Right.
So that's where our story sets off.
Nice. So,
any questions so far?
Nope. So far, so good. Just vengeance guy. So it doesn't sound like he makes it. Unlike the first game, it's he doesn't make a deal. He's just kind of brought back against his will. But he's like, I'm not complaining, right? I mean, he was literally, he fell. And supposedly there was.
Well, he's kind of. I mean, he doesn't want to be like reborn as what he was reborn as, but
right. But he does want to get a shot back at his father, right?
Before he can like die. Yeah.
Again. Before he can die. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's kind of like there's some parallel to the first game, but it's also like this is a different. It's similar, but it's different. You know? Yeah. And that's what I'm liking about that so far. This symbolism and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the big thing with this game is that you can now the mechanic is you can shift between realms.
Now, I heard about that. Supposedly the studio that made Blood Omen, I believe, allegedly, right, is not the same, like, or at least the team that made that game is not the same as the team that made Soul Reaver 1 and 2. And what the powers that be wanted to do was, there was this game that was being developed in-house called Shifter or something like that, using the character that we now know as Raziel. And then they're like, hey, you know what? Let's just combine the two, right? And so I heard that, so they get the kind of like the name, they get the person, or at least the design of that person, and then the concept of shifting. I heard that's what they kind of implemented into Soul Reaver, and that kind of blew me away. It's like, okay, usually that's a sign of bad news, but literally people have been clamoring for a remaster, and then here we go, we got a remaster of 1 and 2. So I assume it's I am assuming this is a good game, right?
Oh, dude, yeah,
Okay.
like one
Yeah.
of the best, if not the best in the series.
And it's cool. Like it was supposed to be like 2 separate games, and now it's like let's mesh it into this masterpiece that we now call Soul Reaver.
Oh, yeah,
so,
dude.
Anyway, yeah. So the shifting, the mechanic. So what does that entail?
So basically, you can ship between what's called the spectral realm and the what's that word? The material realm.
Material. Yeah.
So basically, if you want to look at it, the underworld and the living, and so
And you can can you do it at will, or is that only like after a certain checkpoint, or do you have to reach a certain like?
no, you could do it at will,
Okay.
and but it all plays on like your health, like if you have enough health to do so.
Nice,
I
nice,
believe, yeah. So you shift between the realms, and the cool thing about it is it helps you to like solve puzzles.
Mhm.
So when you shift into the spectral realm, like if you're in the living, like it kind of warps certain areas to kind of give you like, let's say if you need to reach a ledge up here and you have in the material realm where it's too high. Well, now if you switch to the spectral, it'll lower the platform so you can jump on it and then.
That kind of reminded me of the Medium. I don't know if you played that game, but that was a Bloober Team game. So it's like, hey, I can't get in the real world. My spirit self can probably do it though.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of reminded me of that.
been
So
wanting to play
I
that
kind of
game.
see the DNA kind of running through there.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah. All right, so you got this guy. He can shift.
Yeah, and so
he's back
what-
for vengeance.
Yeah, and then one of the other key things that he can do is like absorb souls. So when you kill enemies, you absorb their soul, which is giving you health.
Nice.
So now that's starting to be like a mechanic of its own that kind of has implications further down the road. In the
Oh yeah, it's actually going to be huge. Yeah.
yeah. So where this story leads off after that is you head to this place called Necropolis, and then you find Malkai, this person called Malkaya, and which is his brother. And so this is also the part of the game where the boss fights, you are basically going and fighting your brothers. So in this world, as I stated, like everything went to shit, right? Like as you woke up, everything went to shit.
500 years have passed. You haven't been in the picture, and then your brothers have just stuff has happened.
There's creatures everywhere that you've never seen before, and it seems like something happened to where now there's like this devastating, kind of like what's that word? Plague, a plague.
Okay.
And so when the boss fights you encounter, they're all your brothers, but they're all like disgusting, and they've all taken on a new form
Kind
that
of warped, kind of corrupted.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's kind of like, oh, you made a deal with the devil. This is what you're going to get, kind of thing.
Yeah, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I mention the names, they're basically his brothers as the bosses, and I'll state that they are the bosses. So the first person you go fight is Malkaya, who's your brother, and what he tells you is that the world is fearful, of everything. So it's a world of fear going on,
Right.
and so you end up killing him, and then when you end up destroying him, you gain powers. So this is where like this Metroidvania comes into play, where if certain areas you couldn't get into, you can get into now with the powers that you get. And as you kind of go along, you come across Kain, and you start talking to him, and obviously Raziel's pissed. So you're trying to like ask him, well, why did you do the thing that you do? And then Kain starts explaining, the burden of choices.
Right.
Because obviously in the first game he had to make a choice or certain choices in order to, either preserve the world or destroy the world. And so this is where things start kind of getting interesting, where you may start getting implications of, well, there's something bigger at play going on. So what happens is they fight, of course. Kain and Raziel fight. And Kain tries to kill Raziel with the Soul Reaver because he has the Soul Reaver in hand.
Yeah.
And so what happens is the sword shatters, and what's left of it is a spirit of the sword. But the spirit actually gets absorbed by Raziel, and now he has this freaking cool like ectoplasmic sword.
Right. A version of it, but I think he has to be in the other world, right, to use it or something like that.
He has to be at like full health, basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And so that is the true form of the Soul Reaver. So now they start kind of opening the book on what the Soul Reaver is capable of and why it's important. So aside from it being really cool to like wield and freaking kill people with, exploding people and whatnot, the person that was in the first game, Ariel, shows up and explains that you have to restore balance. So now you're all like, oh, okay, well, if this was in the first game, then do I listen to you or what's going on? Get out of my head. So you're sent to the Silence Cathedral, the area where your next brother is, and you find out that everybody's all freaking looking like insects and stuff.
Right, yeah.
And
more corruption, more warp, more warp stuff.
And see. The cathedral, this is where some of the lore comes into play as well. It's like the cathedral that you're at was actually built as a weapon against Kain's empire by the humans.
Right, yeah. So they've been building this on the side, Right.
Yeah, but the vampires got to him first, and obviously they took over the stronghold.
Yeah,
and so that obviously didn't happen, and you end up killing your brother, and
that's kind of a biggie. Yeah,
yeah, you kill your brother, and then you go to the next one and stuff like that. But the next place is pretty interesting because this is where kind of starts opening up a little bit more on the backstory of Raziel.
Yeah,
and much like the first one, you go through a bunch of dialogues as you're playing. So Raziel is talking in his head the whole time, and you start hearing his thoughts on what he thinks about certain things. So you find yourself at this place called the Tomb of the Seraphan. So the Seraphan is actually a group of elite soldiers that were tasked with or built to destroy the vampires, to eliminate and eradicate them. So when you're here at the Tomb of the Seraphan, you start finding out that there are these is it the names? So there's names on these coffins. It's like a crypt.
Right.
So you have basically you find out that your brothers are all there.
Right.
That's their crypts, and then you find out your name is there.
Yeah. Interesting.
So now you're like, wait, hold on.
How is this possible? Yeah.
Yeah.
What does this mean? Yeah.
So now he's like, was I once human?
Yeah.
And then you find out, oh, you were human.
Shit. Yeah.
And Kain actually turned you into his vampire lieutenant.
So the whole thing about being an offspring, that's kind of bullshit. It was just really he turned you, and you've been with him for so long you don't even remember.
Correct. Yeah. So you're not blood related. I guess after you turn into a vampire.
He adopted you, so to speak, but he is not. You're not him, his kin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that mind explosion. Yeah.
So Raziel is now under that absorbing that information, and that's a big pivotal point in the story.
Right.
So then you go to the next area where you kill your brother, who looks kind of like an amphibian. His name is Rahab, and he tries to explain what Kain's intentions were. Raziel tries to explain what Kain's intention were to his brother, right?
Right.
And then he dismisses it, saying that they were saved, quote unquote, saved. So see, like they're manipulated in their brain, that thinking that they were.
I think I read somewhere that like his weakness was water, so to kind of overcome it, he became aquatic, right, or some shit like that. He became a fishborn, even though it's like I'm gonna prove you wrong. Like my weakness, I'm gonna turn into strength, and so literally his entire dungeon and all of his minions are all fish based. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I totally forgot to mention that. So like each interpretation of his brothers are a depiction of a trait of themselves that they either did or did not like, or I think they did not like. Right.
I want to say you've played these, but I think what I read was that like it took their weaknesses and turned it into their strengths.
Weakness is a better term. Yeah.
And mind you, the end result is disgusting and it's horrifying, but it's also like, well, I am stronger like this. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm still going to kick your ass. Yeah. Raziel just there in the corner. All right. Yeah. So So
then after that, you head to this place called Ash Village, and then you find your other brother, Dumas. Dumbass. Yeah. Who is, he's basically the brute of the group. And you find him speared. He was murdered by somebody. But
that's right.
Raziel, pulls out the spear, and then he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, thank you, brother, for doing this." And then, but Raziel's like, "Hey, this is going on with Kain, right?" But obviously, he's like defending him, and so then you're at odds ends. You know, you're on opposite ends with each other, and so now you start fighting, right?
Yeah. So you save him just to kill him yourself.
Yeah, and he's literally the strongest, physically the strongest vampire around. He's even stronger than Kain.
Shit. Okay. Wow.
So
hell of a statement. Yeah.
I know. And you have to find a way to. I think you burn him. You put him in a furnace.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, you're all like, all right, bitch, I'm gonna fucking burn your ass.
Shit, that easy. Just do that to Kain. No.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So he's done, over with, and I believe that was the last one. So the next place you have to go is the Oracle Caves, where as I stated earlier, was in the previous game, the Oracle was Mobius, right? Talking to you the whole time.
Right.
And who is the time guy, the time dude, let's just call him that.
Right.
And,
the time dude.
So you're in the Oracle Caves, and this is the place where Mobius was stationed at in Blood Omen. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep.
And so Raziel finds portals that show him the past, future, and present. Oh, goodness. This is where it gets freaking good. Right? So he starts absorbing all this information. He's like, whoa, like, what's going on here? There's a lot of information to take in. And he believes that it's a trick of Kain to deceive him.
Right.
So he's kind of like in denial because of what he's seeing. I think some of it was where the choices that he had found himself upon. That's why he couldn't believe it, because he was like, I would never do something like that.
Right.
And
right.
So this is where now it leads to the ending of the game, where you're in this place called the Chronoplast, which is a time machine.
Nice. Love it.
Of Mobius's creation. Da da da. So now you obviously Kain's there, and Kain's all like, you finally made it. Okay, all right. And this is where this big old dialogue starts taking place, where he tells him that the true power of knowledge, tells him of the true power of knowledge, and he knew Raziel would survive the abyss, saying that he knew this from the very start, before he killed him, that this was all going to happen.
Right.
So now you're wondering, well, what the hell is Kain up to?
Yeah, all these things that you thought were just circumstance. No, it's been planned.
Yeah. So he also explains that they are on predetermined paths, and free will is an illusion. So this is a particular topic for the whole entire series as well. It's called the whole concept of free will.
Yeah, determinism and free will. Yeah.
Because now you start putting together, you're like, he's saying that that fate is something. Like, you're always going to be destined to always fall in line with this particular fateful endeavor. Yeah. And then you have free will, which is like, no, I would never be bound to fate. Right. So now there's two concepts that are fighting each other.
Right.
And so what happens after that is, after Kain's kind of explaining all this stuff, and you learn that everything Kain has done has been for a reason. So they don't explain it. They just kind of feed you little breadcrumbs to kind of put that together yourself. And when Kain gets kind of beat up in the battle, he leaves in the portal and tells them specifically, this is not where I die, or this is not where everything ends. He's like, we still have much to do.
We still got a whole lot left.
And then so he goes through the portal, and then you're like about to go through the portal, but the Elder God starts talking to you and be like, Raziel, I will not be able to talk with you anymore if you go across the portal. I'm going to lose contact with you.
Right.
And then Raziel's like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to go through.
And I don't need you no more.
And then you end up appearing on the opposite side of the portal, right? And then this is where Mobius shows up, and he starts talking to you, kind of telling you like, hey, let me see if I have specifically what he said. Nope, I don't. So he's there on the opposite. I don't know exactly specifically what he's saying, but you meet him on the other side, and that's
play the game to find out.
Yeah, and then the game just ends there, and you're like, what? Like
a
cliffhanger, fucking cliffhanger, dude.
Is that the one? Kind of minor spoiler. We're in spoiler territory anyway. Is this the? No, never mind. I think I know the answer to, but I know one of the games ends with like a final tagline. It's like, time doesn't like being fucked with. It's something like that.
Something like that.
It's like time,
one of these.
Yeah, time doesn't like paradox or something.
Yeah, it ends with a quote, but I forgot what. Yeah, basically.
I'm trying to remember if it's this one or maybe a future one. But yeah, I remember looking that up and thinking, oh, you leave it on a time travel cliffhanger, you bastard.
So basically the game kind of makes you put together like, hey, well, is Kain actually up to something, or is he a good guy, or is he a bad guy? Because like all the stuff that you find out throughout the game.
Yeah, it's
loosely speaking.
It's one of those things. Yeah, you start as the good guy in the tavern, he dies, and then you build yourself up into this bad. bad guy. He starts off as a bad guy, and it looks like, okay, he's really not all that bad. This was all according to a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot to unpack, but basically that was my favorite of the series. And do you have any questions on any of that?
I followed along.
That's a lot. My throat's starting to hurt from talking so much.
I was gonna say, do you want to take a 2-minute break and then we can catch up? After we've got a drink of water, or do you want to just power right through it?
Fucking do it.
Fucking do it.
Fucking get rid.
Fuck it. Let's do it. Okay.
Let's do it. I mean, we only have one more game to talk about. I think that's what we'll have enough time for. So,
Gotcha.
Soul Reaver 2.
Soul Reaver 2. This is it.
Let's
the remaster.
Yeah.
Coming up. Yeah.
So, this is Soul Reaver 2.
Gotta love this art.
Dude, I know it's sick.
I love this art.
Don't mind the tags. That's just from GameStop.
So,
I've had it for so long.
Soul Reaver 1 takes place in the PS1 era, and it leaves on a hell of a cliffhanger. And then Soul Reaver 2 picks up from there. Actually, and I think there's even a kind of a previously on Soul Reaver, and it's on this next generation, which is the PS2.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? Like he goes through a portal from the PS1 era, and then he ends up on the PS2 era.
Yeah, no,
it's kind of a cool.
I remember. So yeah, criticism, positive thoughts. People were like, "Yay, it continues the story." Negativity, it's like because of the advanced hardware, and because I think, Crystal Dynamics? They're like, we want to play around with it. We want to get experimental. People were like, "Stop doing that, please." No, like something about the controls or something about like the way.
Yeah, I think this game was rushed a little bit through its production.
Right.
And so
I did hear about that.
Back in the days, they didn't have patches, right? So like if the game came out, that was it. That's what you got.
That's it. Yeah.
So they got to kind of rush through a couple of things. Obviously, the story was left great. I mean, they had the story written pretty well.
Yeah. And how it played and all that stuff.
Like puzzles. Yeah. Certain puzzles were interesting. And some of the things that people griped about were like, I never knew that you could move certain things, but I actually kind of appreciate it because like I love having to think really hard on what to do and finding things that are, you would have never guessed to move in particular puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah, let's just jump into the story of Soul Reaver 2. This leaves off right after, the previous games, specifically right after. And so what happens is like you end up talking with Mobius and so you end up in an ancient era of Nosgoth.
Mm-hmm.
So everything actually looks nice.
Okay.
So the world looks like it was untouched. So now you're wondering, did I go back in time? It's kind of, it feels that way, right?
Right.
Or was the timeline manipulated in the past that made everything look decent or better now in the future or in the present time?
Yeah. So you're kind of lost in time.
I know your brain's probably like, what the fuck's going on here?
No, not really. Sorry, that's just how I did. No, it's kind of like, so where am I? When am I? That's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, and so Mobius is basically it was manipulated by Mobius in believing Kain is his mortal enemy and a corrupter of history. So obviously, the people are looking at Kain as like, man, he's fucking shit up. What is he doing?
So what's up with Mobius here? So is he? I'm just gonna ask: is he the Elder God, or what's? Is there like? It just seems like this is a game where there's a lot of puppets who think they see the strings, but no, it's actually no. You don't.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, that was one of my thoughts whenever I was playing the game. But he's actually he's orchestrating alongside the Elder God. So just to kind of put it that way, right?
Okay.
I mean,
got it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. There's plans within plans within plans. There's always like.
Yeah.
There's always something afoot, and who knows?
So what happens is you right after you arrive in the Nosgoth, you're in the I think the Seraphan stronghold, the Seraphan, and you end up finding a tomb, or sorry, a crypt that has a broken Soul Reaver on it, which belonged to William the Just. And this is where the first paradox happens. Yeah. So you have the spectral sword, or the wraith sword,
right?
And as soon as you get close to it, this is the Raziel's first witnessing of his paradox. Everything kind of gets shaky around him, and he's like, "Well, what's going on?" So now it kind of changes things in the timeline.
So are we going back to the first paradox, or are we getting into a new paradox?
No, this is like a new paradox.
This is a new paradox. Okay, damn. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So now this is the premise of the whole entire game on this particular game. Like this is where Paradox started getting introduced a little bit more.
Yeah.
And how what role they play into the story and how they're manipulating everything. It gets fucking crazy. It's like, yeah. Once you leave this area, you end up going to the Pillars of Nosgoth, which were, obviously they're in good shape right now. But you find Kain. Let's see. So Kain's refusal to sacrifice himself in the first game, but oh wait, sorry, I was reading the wrong one. So when you meet him at the pillars, Kain tries to tell you everything's cryptic when he's fucking talking, and so just like when Ariel's telling you stuff, like it's kind of everything's very cryptic. So he starts telling you about their intertwined destinies, like how they're important into the story and like what he's trying to achieve. And Kain urges Raziel to think beyond Mobius's manipulations. So he's trying to tell you that Mobius is manipulating you.
Mobius is like, oh, he's manipulating
so
you.
So you're
like, he's manipulating you.
Like no, he did it. No, he did it. Like, who the fuck's doing it?
Yeah. God damn it.
I don't care who's doing it. I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this grand scheme going on. But throughout all this, like I mentioned in the previous game, you start getting the feel, you start seeing a little bit more of a, let's just say, humanity, a humane nature of Kain.
Yeah.
Something that's not so demonic, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not like this super bad person.
He's a bad guy. You start off Soul Reaver 1 demonizing him, and next thing you know, it's like,
everything,
I don't like you, but I think I understand you.
Yeah, he's starting to talk more clearly, like where Raziel can understand, and he's making it sound very persuasive. And so obviously you always have your guard up. You're always kind of like, no, something's going on here.
I was going to ask too, Mobius, didn't he die in the first game? Because I thought all the avatars died in the first game, right?
He did, but remember we're now dealing with time.
We're in the new, it's so with time fuckery. It's like,
yeah. So now who knows what the fuck's going on? Yeah, it's crazy.
Nah, yeah.
So yeah, he tells you that in order to restore balance, that you play a critical role into this world where. This is kind of where my notes kind of get very hazy on things. But,
go for it. Yeah, no problem. We could just keep it at broad strokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he tells you that the Soul Reaver, that's a big pivotal, that's a big crucial thing in the story.
Right.
And that since it has a very paradoxical nature.
Yeah.
It exists as both a physical weapon and as a spectral entity. So it's a revelation to Raziel and his connection to the weapon and understanding his own purpose. And so what happens here is gonna just go away from the notes for a little bit.
Yeah, go for
it. The game starts orchestrating this two sides now. You got the two sides of the coin where you're trying to understand what Kain's intentions are and then what Raziel's intentions are, because now there's something bigger at play for both of them.
Right.
And so with Raziel's story, his is based around this concept of free will.
Mm-hmm.
And Kain's is based around this concept of fate.
Mm-hmm.
So basically Kain's telling you, no, you're on predetermined paths to fall in line with how things are going to end.
And Raziel's just like, you can't make me.
Well, he has the ability to fend off like the fate nature.
That's cool.
So he monologues himself and he's like, I choose my own path. So that's his mindset, right?
I like that.
Yeah. So now it's like fucking cool. It's so cool. And but yet still Kain is telling him like, hey, this is how things need to be, and then you got it back and forth going on.
Right.
But in order for you to like, the whole premise is still trying to restore balance to the world of Nosgoth and to the pillars.
Yes.
And so that's where this game kind of takes place. And you're basically going after Kain still. But one of the critical moments in the game is where you go back in time.
More time travel.
Oh yeah.
Yay, more.
You much like the first game where you find a realization of something for Raziel's history, you learn something else where there was this vampire, I forgot his name, damn it. I'll do, but let's just call him this guy. I don't want to butcher his name, but he's the number one vampire, the ultimate vampire that ever lived. and Aldurin, no, Aldurin, damn it, whatever. But in that history, he was Raziel goes back in time to talk with him to get more answers on what's going on,
Right.
because he holds the truth to a lot of things. And so when you meet him, he's a very good he's a good vampire. So
Yeah.
and when he talks to you, he's like, Raziel, like, you play a big picture into this, you play a big role in
So
this
he was
world.
expecting him.
Basically, yeah.
That's kind of freaky.
Dude, I know, right? It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, everybody, what the fuck?
I like those memes where it's like you go back in time to save Jesus and he's like, you're not supposed to be here. But here it's like, welcome. It's like,
Yeah.
what? That's pretty cool.
And
that's pretty sick.
what happens is like you find like the human selves of so as we found out that Raziel was a Seraphan person, right?
Yeah.
So
last we
him and the
heard
brothers-
on, yeah. on
So
first-
the brothers come out, you find that they're there. Then you see Raziel's human form there. So it's now
yeah,
you're
alive. Yeah.
now you're both in the same world
Yeah.
of what's going on. But
Yeah.
you find out that the Seraphan the group were going to go and murder the ultimate vampire,
Right.
and so
And he's actually kind of likable. Right.
yeah, well, and Raziel tries to stop it, but then he tells him, no, just let it happen because you have something bigger at play here. Let me just give you some information that you can take away from this, and
That's
then
crazy.
yeah,
I like it. I love it.
and so and the cool thing about it is like he had this thing called the Heart of Darkness. He had a heart of darkness.
I heard that was important in the first game, or it was like a collectible in the first game, but then literally Soul Reaver 1 and 2 kind of played into the importance of the Heart of Darkness.
Yeah,
right?
you literally get the Heart of Darkness in the very beginning of the game, on Blood Omen. And so what it does is that it revives you when you die.
Nice. So it's
like a life.
It's a game with like a in-game mechanic, and here it becomes a plot point. Is that
That's
fair to say?
basically, yeah.
Nice.
So now you find out where that came from. And so
nice world building.
The Seraphan brothers, Brotherhood pulls out the heart, and then they basically killed him. And so now you go back in time to the present, and forgive my looseness on everything, but the story between what the Soul Reaver represents is that it holds that itself is holding the balance into the pillars.
Mm-hmm.
And so since Raziel is imbued with that, he himself is the Soul Reaver.
He is the Soul Reaver.
He is the embodiment of the Soul Reaver.
Right. And
So
and
now
the Soul Reaver sucks souls, right? So he is the soul of the sword, and it sucks souls. Right.
Yeah,
Right,
it's a soul
it's a soul
sucker. You're sucking
It's a soul
everybody.
sucker, yeah.
Sucking everybody off.
Soul absorber, soul whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Just wanted to be clear, because it is kind of confusing. I am catching along for the most part, and I'm
telling you, it's a lot of stuff.
But I feel like that's becoming important, right? I mean, right? So he is the sword. The sword is with him, but the sword is also kind of its own thing, and the sword absorbs souls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Good. Got it. See, I got it. Okay. Go ahead.
So what happens at the end is you end up with Kain, right? But the sword starts working against you. The sword is like now wanting to impale you.
Why?
So you're trying to fend it off, and Kain's like, no, just let it happen. Like just let it happen, because when it does happen, because he does get impaled, and so like you're like, no, like what's going on? And Kain pulls out the sword. I mean, Raziel's still alive.
I saw that cutscene. It's all pretty badass.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so now I forgot what happened after that, but it basically caused another paradox where
Isn't it because like it's like he is the sword, but the sword takes souls, so it's kind of like circular. It's like you are absorbing your own soul, which is being absorbed by the sword, which is you, right? It's kind of like
yeah, it's like a cyclic nature.
yeah, cyclic. It's kind of in of itself a paradox, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that causes a lot of stuff to happen, and basically the game concludes with like Raziel refusing to merge with the Soul Reaver.
Gotcha.
So this is where his free will, he's defying to his
Yeah.
destiny, and this it disrupts the flow of time.
Nice.
So see, like with him not dying by the sword, it actually fucks up everything.
Right. Yeah. I saw like in the gameplay, like there's like little like earthquakes and stuff, like because it's like, oh, the timeline's pissed that you're not following it.
Yeah.
you know?
And so now, much like Blood Omen 1, where the choices made by Kain disrupted a lot of things, now Raziel's choice disrupted a lot of things.
That's pretty cool.
So
I saw that there was a point like in the story where like Kain just like he just kind of like I don't know, he sees like time, right? Or like he sees the new timeline coming, and so he just kind of stares blankly.
I'm so glad that you looked up some of these videos.
Dude, I'm telling you, I love this shit.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, no, and so people are like, what did he see? What did he see? And it's like, enter another game.
Yeah. So when he pulls the sword out, the paradox that happens is that Kain ends up absorbing all this information and visions
of the past that he did not live technically. Or
he mentions this damn it, what's that? Yeah, so hold on, while I look up the name, because that's a very
voice it. What are you trying to?
It's the particular people.
Seraphan, no. It's not the
hold the phone. It's on Blood Omen 2. It's
yeah. The way I understand it is that basically, so you have Blood Omen, and then the original studio that made, I love getting into the meta of like development, right?
Hilden.
The Hilden, there you go. The Hilden.
Yes. So he gets all these visions. Sorry for that, but Kain gets all these visions, and then he comes to the realization. He's like, oh no, and then he's like, the Hilden,
and no one knew what that meant.
The fucking game ends.
Yeah, and no one knew what that meant, and then it leaves on a big cliffhanger.
Yep.
And then that's the cliffhanger where it's like time doesn't like paradoxes.
Yes, yeah, I think it was that game. Yeah,
and then that's when it's like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, you're like, not another
freaking cliffhanger.
Yeah,
but yeah, I remember seeing that cutscene, and you just see him like,
yeah,
that's a little too long to be a coincidence.
I know, right?
I don't think that was a design error.
What's going on here?
And literally, it's because Blood Omen 2.
Well, yeah. Well, Blood Omen 2, there's mixed feelings between that, or mixed interpretations where I think they already established it was a separate timeline. But then some people felt like it wasn't because they didn't contribute that much to the story. But I think where the key parts that it does contribute to the story is where the Hilden come into play.
Right. I heard, so it's like, I heard that the timeline in Blood Omen 2 doesn't line up with the other installments, but the way that you reconcile that is by saying, well, that doesn't take place in the original timeline. It takes place in the new timeline, but this game takes place in the past of that new timeline. So I'm like, I was one of the few people who watched Tenet and actually kind of got it. So it's like I can fuck with this.
I had to watch Inception twice. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like what I heard the meta was like, okay, so you have Blood Omen, and then it goes to Soul Reaver 1 and 2, and people were like, hold on, where is Blood Omen 2? And so the answer is, here's your Blood Omen 2. It's a sequel to Reaver. It's a sequel to Blood Omen. It's a prequel that takes place in a different timeline. It makes sense somehow. Somehow it makes sense. Somehow it fucking makes sense. But that's what I love about it. Like, me personally, like, that's why I feel like, this is one of the greatest games I've never played, because it fucks with time, it fucks with your mind, it fucks with your sanity. Vampires,
exactly,
and like literally down to the mechanic of like sucking blood. They use like telekinesis, whatever, to like.
Oh yeah. So that's one thing. Yeah.
So it's a play. It goes gothic, but it also does new things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That was cool. Like that was one thing I liked. Where they didn't have to like go and bite you. Like she pull blood from your body. I'm like, fuck.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. But anyways, so that is Soul Reaver 2. About as much as we can explain to you, because with we can briefly talk about Blood Omen 2 and also the Defiance. But I will be honest, I am not too familiar with the story arc on that for like the in-depth stuff. Right. But just the key areas. And so with Blood Omen 2, they kind of like explain more what the Hilden are, and just in plain view, it's basically there was this war between the vampires and the Hilden. The Hilden are like these kind of weird looking creatures. Mm-hmm. They're monsters, and so there was these wars happening between them, and they were responsible for some of the creations of like the elemental type things, or the things in the land that were kind of things you couldn't explain. Okay. So like think about like if aliens were creating stuff and we could never explain, well, why is this doing the thing that it does? It was because the Hilden fucking.
Because the Hilden, yeah, of course.
And so there were the whole game that there was a threat there, and then they kind of explained stuff. But Kain, there was I think the way that it ties into the story is that it explains what they were about and how that was contributing to that story to kind of make sense of it, because then they came out with Defiance
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And so
but we can always follow up on that. But I mean, it's kind of curious. I'm kind of curious to see. So I know Blood Omen. This is what threw me off, and this is why I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I wanted to confirm this. You have Blood Omen on PlayStation Network, and you have Blood Omen 2. If I were just, your Joe Schmo, I would play Blood Omen and then go straight into Blood Omen 2 and just be completely caught off guard with the Hilden, the inconsistent timeline, the powers, kind of like... I heard a big problem between the games is like you have to relearn your powers, even though the chronology, it's like you should, in theory, still keep your powers, but because of game mechanics, it's like, no, you have to rebuild. It's like, why? So me being a Joe Schmo, I would have gotten lost and played Blood Omen 2, and then Soul Reaver 2. That's completely incorrect, right? That's not the right way to play. It's Blood Omen, then Soul Reaver 1 and 2, which is about to come out, the remaster in a week, and then Blood Omen. Right. I feel like, if anything, I'm more excited to play those.
Yeah.
God dang it.
It almost makes you feel like if they have a bigger thing at play, maybe like a totally remaster of Blood Omen, or even Blood Omen 2. Well, I would think Blood Omen 1, because that one, the graphics are very...
Yeah, because I think PS1. It's just ports at this point, but that doesn't leave out the possibility of a full-blown like remaster, like the Metal Gear Solid series.
Yeah. So the one thing to note on the end of Soul Reaver 2 is now you find like this teamwork, team up of Kain and Raziel.
Yeah.
So now they're no longer kind of being seen as enemies. They're actually seeing like, well, now there's a greater thing at play, and we need to work together to get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
Like to take care of it.
Without getting too much into spoilers on Defiance, like do they ever answer what that is? Like, what is this thing that they're working towards?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
To be continued. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, basically in Defiance, like they each have their own paths that lead into the concluding events. It's the last game in the series, and story wise, it's great. Gameplay wise, not so great. A lot of people had different gripes with the mechanics on it. Like the cameras sucked, and that was always a big problem with games. And so this one is extremely worse. It was hard to control it, and people were questioning, well, what the fuck went on here? Also, the fighting style ended up changing a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the story explains a little bit more into the now we unpack each game, kind of unpacked like a big a thing that you thought was the only thing at play.
Right.
But it's like what are those Russian dolls, right? The Russian dolls that are kind of within each other.
Yeah.
There's like one thing after another. Now it's like this big ass one that just got unpacked, and you're like, oh my god, like dude,
the layers. There's so many layers.
Like the amount of orchestration that was in the background. Like this is a lot of thought into like the story, which is why I love the game. It's awesome.
Yeah.
How they explain everything.
Absolutely. I'm excited to give it a try, to actually play it. It's my love of a good story that brought me to watch all these like replays and stuff. And even then, I'm sure that doesn't do justice to the actual gameplay. So I appreciate you explaining it further. But now I'm actually excited to actually play it.
For sure. And like I said, it's kind of sad that a lot of people didn't really know about what Legacy of Kain was. And the fact that they're bringing it back and making sure that people are aware, because it's such a great game, and reviving it. So
absolutely.
I mean, I'm super stoked for it. But is there any questions you have on anything? Because
no, I followed along, and then basically you confirm my understanding of those games. And again, I appreciate this. I appreciate you boiling it down, breaking it down, and really explaining it. So I'm excited. I'm excited to finally play it.
Yeah. So at the time of this recording, it is getting released on December 10th, which this video should release on that date. If not, it'll release that week of when it releases. So hopefully y'all have a great amount of time to play the game, and I know I'm gonna try my best to play it.
Yeah, no, it's with the holidays and what have you. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Yeah. So, but anyways, Raziel and Kain, dude, like talk about one of my favorite figures in gaming. Like they're just so great, like in their stories.
Absolutely. I'm excited, especially for Blood Omen. I don't know. I'm so excited for Blood Omen in particular. It just looks like so much fun.
For sure. Yeah, but hopefully everything made sense. Did not make a lot of sense to me, even though I was the one narrating and talking about it. But goddamn, this is a fucking crazy game. So hopefully, again, hopefully y'all liked it, and we will catch you on the next episode.
All right. Peace. Take care.
Bye.